Hi, my name is Shirley Gutkowski, and thank you for joining me today as we do a little rehearsal for the Well Expo for my time on the main stage. I like to do a recording, not a recording, but an actual rehearsal. I'm sitting down, and usually when I do a rehearsal, I'll do it standing up, but because of this, this venue here, or this way of doing things, I will do it from down here, and I'm thinking you're going to have a shared screen right now, and that you are all seeing the screen that talks about sweet breath, performance breathing for everyone who breathes. Do you get tired? Are you tired all the time? Do you feel drained? Sometimes when you wake up in the morning, do you have to put little sticks in your eyes, or by the end of the day you're just too tired to even stay up and you have to fall to medications like caffeine or whatever's in those crazy energy drinks just to stay awake? You might be surprised to learn that sometimes this is caused because of mouth breathing, that you have a lot more control over how you're going to feel than just by eating different foods or drinking different beverages. My name, as I mentioned earlier, is Shirley Gutkowski. I am America's dental hygienist, but I'm now an orofacial myofunctional therapist, and you will see me posting about these kinds of things all the time on the website or on the Facebook page Primal Air, or on my America's Dental Hygienist Facebook page. Respiratory fitness is what we'll be talking about today, and it's not something that gets covered very often. I hear it talked about quite a bit within yoga and meditation circles, but we're not always yogaing or doing meditation. Most of us have jobs. Most of us have to be able to get from the car to the store in a scurry because it's raining sleet or or some other horrible weather event. Just doing those kind of things, and everything to, triathlons and decathlons and all the other kind of fitness activities that we do. We need to be able to do all those things with our mouths closed. That's the key. That's the most important feature to just about any kind of physiological thing that you're going to be talking about, whether it's diet, whether it's supplements, whether it's this or that. If it's not done with the mouth closed, you're not going to be in as good a shape as you would if you did have your mouth closed. You can see in this picture, all the mammals have their mouth closed, and they're at a high energy level output, high output level. This is Sierra, and she is going to show us how active she is with her lips together.
I'm going to do a carpet with my tongue on the spot and with my lips together.
It's kind of hard to understand her because she doesn't have any teeth, but she was going to do a cartwheel with her lips together and her tongue to the roof of her mouth behind her upper front teeth, and she did. This is a case study of a Placer County Mountain Search and Rescue volunteer who improved his mountain climbing distance by 50%. He and his climbing buddy used to climb at a pace of about 1,000 feet an hour, and just by closing their mouth, they were able to improve that climbing speed by 50%, up to 1,500 feet per hour. That can make or break a weekend. And their training activities are on weekends, and if you can add an extra 500 feet an hour on your climb, you can get a lot more done, and you can get a lot more happening with your rescues if you were to find somebody. He also does a fair amount of cycling on mountain roads, and he was able to improve his stamina by 50% by keeping his mouth closed during the ride. He reports that the first 10 minutes is very, very difficult, but once you get over that 10-minute hump, all he had to do was keep his mouth closed, and he got off his bike that first time, and he thought his odometer was broken. He really thought that he'd only gone half the distance. During the McGregor-Mayweather fight, we heard the announcers saying near the end of the fight that McGregor showed signs of fatigue, his mouth hanging open. In this next picture here, you can see that definitely at the same time of the fight, Mayweather looked a lot more energetic and his mouth is completely closed. McGregor is just hanging. This is a little video on mouth breathing. You can find this on YouTube if you need to revisit it.
The normal or physiological way of breathing is through your nose. Breathing through the nose permits to purify the air by the structures inside the nasal cavity. In that way, the air entering into your naso and oropharynx, your throat, is not going to heavily affect the lymphoid tissue in the adenoids and tonsils, which is the last barrier to catch harmful particles in the air before it reaches your lungs. Besides clearing the air from harmful particles, nasal breathing stimulates the production of gases and substances in the nose, which are going to facilitate the entrance of the air in the lungs and prevent infection in your respiratory system. Mouth breathing allows the air to pass directly into your throat, where the adenoids and tonsils are located. In that way, the air entering into your body through your mouth has not previously been purified, and the lymphoid tissue in the adenoids and tonsils become the first defensive barrier against the harmful particles contained in the air. As a consequence, that lymphoid tissue overgrows, occupying a large volume of your throat. That makes more difficult for the nasal breathing, and you make a habit of breathing through your mouth.
So there's a lot of different airway obstructions or different ways your airway can be obstructed. Those include things like a cold, or the tonsils and the adenoids have been enlarged, or the tongue tone is not quite right, or the palate may be too small. And that comes from mouth breathing as well. It gets imprinted onto the DNA of the parents, and then the offspring are born thinking they don't need such a large palate. They don't need to be breathing that hard or that easy, and so the palate becomes smaller and smaller. And the side view here, we can see that the sinuses are pretty big, and there's a bunch of different parts to the sinuses, but most importantly are the turbinates. The turbinates stir up the air so that it can get, so the inspired air, the air that you breathe in, can get mixed in with the gases that are produced in the sinuses. You can see here also the eustachian tube, and the eustachian tube is important because that goes right into the auditory canal, and that's how ear infections and sinus infections go together, and that's how dental decay and ear infections go together in children. So it's really important. I also like to draw your attention there to the sinus-mouth connection. The floor of the sinuses is the palate of the mouth, the roof of the mouth. So when you're looking at a palate from dental side, or if you're just looking at your own children's palate, or even your own, if it's not wide, if it's tall and thin, your sinuses are going to be smaller. There's not going to be as much room for anything to happen. So let's take another look of what's in there. From the front view, you can see the turbinates are massive, and the sinuses are just big void places, and down the middle you have the septum. In the front, towards the front of your face, it's more cartilage, and as you go back, it's a little bit bonier, especially up near the top. You have mucus surrounding the whole situation there, mucous membrane, and mucus is important. As dirt particles and bacteria get breathed in, they get trapped into that mucus, and eventually they get swished down into the stomach. But the nasal septum isn't always that perfect. It's pretty easy to break. It's pretty easy to get it all bent up and twisted. You can see in this picture on the left that the cartilage is kind of beat up looking. But also notice that the artist drew the mucous membrane to be swollen as compared to the picture on the right, or even the previous photos or images that we saw. So if we could get that tissue to shrink, we could maybe improve breathing just by doing that. So if you feel like your cartilage is bent up, then it may be worthwhile for you to look at ways to shrink that mucous membrane so that you can have more air. You can breathe through your nose better. Sometimes, though, you just need a surgeon. Breathing through the day is one thing, but breathing with your mouth open at night is completely different and also has a lot of consequences. Almost all the hormones in our body are kittywampus once you start mouth breathing and snoring, breathing through your mouth at night. Snoring even increases preterm delivery. Children who breathe through their mouth don't get fully formed sinuses. They don't mature. They stop growing. It's really a big deal. So let's all take a couple of minutes, and see about our own respiratory fitness. So this is called a BOLT score, body oxygen level test, and it's pretty simple to do. You can do it seated or you can do it standing. I'd like to have you all stand right now because we're sitting. It's a sitting down kind of a community right here. So if you just stand up and start breathing with your mouth closed, and don't talk to your neighbor, don't talk to the screen, don't talk to anybody. Just stand with your mouth closed or sit with your mouth closed and just breathe nasally. And follow this little bonging thing over here for a few breaths as I describe further the BOLT score. So this is the drawing from the Oxygen Advantage book. I'm going to ask you at a certain point to take a small breath in and a small breath out and hold your breath and start counting after the exhale. It's not like a hold your breath contest. This is just a fitness test to see how well you are breathing. And then at the first sign of air hunger, a little bit past that, you're going to let go of your nose and resume normal breathing through your nose. Okay, so continue breathing, and in another second or so I'm going to ask you to take a small breath in and a small breath out, maybe 2 seconds in and then 3 seconds out. And if you'll do that now, and then hold your breath and start counting seconds. And then when you get to feeling a need for air, don't hold until you're going to be blue in the face, just a need for air. Let your fingers go and start breathing nasally and continue normal breathing. And this is how that maps out. The top row of Roman numerals there are ASA scores. That's what physicians use to communicate between each other on the health status, the quick and dirty health status of a patient that they're working on together. So you can see how these BOLT scores kind of match up with that. If your BOLT score was over 40, you're normal and healthy. If your BOLT score is over 20, you have some kind of a mild systemic disease. Maybe you have a cold. Maybe you're putting on some weight. And then 10 and over, if you could only manage in the teens to hold your breath into the teens, that would be an example of an ASA 3 indicating severe systemic diseases. And under 10 seconds would be a life-threatening disease. And all of that is managed by carbon dioxide. It's in the news all the time, carbon dioxide this, carbon dioxide that, and we're getting a very low opinion of carbon dioxide, and we need to have it. We need to get rid of it, right? We need to do something about it. We need to manage it. But carbon dioxide is what triggers the breathing center in the medulla, and that's what drives expiration, and inspiration comes automatically. So you would get the feeling that maybe carbon dioxide is a waste gas, that it just doesn't, we just use it as a trigger. But as we learn more and more about the body, we realize that there's not a bunch of teeter-totters here. It's not a bunch of if this, then that. There are a lot of interrelated activities that happen in the body, a bunch of different hormones and chemicals that are made and unmade, broken apart, used, destroyed. You know, all kinds of things are happening based on one or three other things that are happening. So it's important to realize that breathing and carbon dioxide are going hand in hand, but carbon dioxide helps smooth muscle relax. It affects the smooth muscle. And just so you know what kind of a reminder, a smooth muscle is involuntary muscle. Cardiac muscle is also involuntary, but it's got a completely different structure than any other muscles in the body. And we have musculoskeletal kind of muscles and or tissue, and that is under voluntary control. The lower 2/3 of our esophagus is smooth muscle, and our cardiovascular system is surrounded with smooth muscle cells. So if you don't have enough carbon dioxide, you can see that the smooth muscle in the cardiovascular system can kind of contract, and that's bad. That would contribute to high blood pressure. Things that can get rid of carbon dioxide are talking too fast and sighing, maybe some yawning, frequent deep breaths. All of those things can contribute to offloading too much of this carbon dioxide. If you're doing it while you're asleep, mouth breathing for instance, you'll snore more. Yes, it goes back and forth. It can contribute to disturbed sleep patterns and contribute to constant tiredness or a lack of energy. So what happens is it's on the red blood cell. Carbon dioxide and oxygen both take residence on red blood cells. And when one's not there, the other is. So they kind of attach on the same part of the blood cell, and they go back and forth. So when there's not enough carbon dioxide, the oxygen is more tightly adhered onto that red blood cell. It's on there tighter. There's no reason for it to come off. So if you imagine all those times where you feel like you can't get any more air, it's often due because of the lack of carbon dioxide, not the lack of oxygen. So taking a deeper breath or exhaling your carbon dioxide off is counter to what you should be doing. Maybe a breath hold would be more appropriate. Mouth breathing interferes with the oxygen's release to the muscles. If there's nothing to replace that oxygen molecule on the red blood cell, there's no reason for it to let loose. So it's important that we have a good balance. And then the third gas, right, we have carbon dioxide, we have oxygen, and then we have nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is made throughout your entire body, and it's very necessary in the nose to do a lot of different things. Most importantly, it kills bacteria, kind of sterilizes the air. And when it gets down into the lungs, it helps the breath sacs expand. It helps everything expand. Used together, carbon dioxide and nitric oxide together will relax the smooth muscle throughout the body. As we age, we have less and less of the nitric oxide to work with. And if you're mouth breathing, you have even less. It relaxes that smooth muscle around the cardiovascular system, around your vessels, blood vessels. So the nitric oxide together with the carbon dioxide is a better way, a drug-free way of lowering your blood pressure. So this is Sierra again, and let's watch her do an exercise that we do with buteyko breathing to help the body become more accustomed to a higher level of carbon dioxide, because right now the body is used to getting rid of it. So she did 44 steps, but you saw maybe that she took her first breath in through her mouth, and we want her to breathe in through her nose exclusively. So we're going to ask her to do another little round here, and she's holding a business card between her lips just to get her lips used to the idea of being closed while she's doing these exercises. We've had her jumping rope and the hula hoop and everything. So now she's doing what's called the step exercise. So now I'm coaching her into a small breath in and a small breath out, and then holding. And shortly she'll start walking. You can see as the stress builds, her circles are going to get smaller and smaller. There's no right speed to the steps exercise. As you walk faster and faster, the stress goes up. So walking fast and walking slow is identical. You can see she did a lot better there, taking her first breath in through her nose. So how do you keep your nose clean so that you can breathe through your nose? That's a whole nother trick. This is one way, but it doesn't go really in far enough, does it? But xylitol can. Xylitol is a sugar, and it measures like sugar. It tastes like sugar, and it has none of the detrimental effects that sugar does. Your body makes about a tablespoon of xylitol a day, and you can find xylitol in a number of fruits and mostly fruits and vegetables throughout the plant kingdom. It's very, very common. It's also found in foods made from those fruits. What xylitol can do is penetrate that mucus. It has a molecular weight that penetrates through the mucus and breaks it apart, and you can, when you use it as a nasal spray, you can feel it kind of going down your throat. It's kind of a cool feeling. You can also appreciate a sweet taste as it's going down your throat. So we know we have sweet sensors going far down. It's not just on the tongue. Sweet sensation is a critical part of our ancestry and of our evolution, and gives us a signal of safety. That has been completely exploited, dastardly by nefarious organizations and people so that they can sell more of this and that. But the truth is that we have an innate preference to sweet foods in order to live safely. We have to be more aware now, which is why we have so many folds in our brain, that this isn't necessarily true. We have to kind of figure things out like that. But it also, the xylitol also feeds the bacteria in a very peculiar way, because the bacteria love it and they will eat it. They will wait for it to come around again, which is why you want to use it frequently throughout the day, but they can't metabolize it, so they die. So they just kind of just die. Like if you ate potato chips 24/7, if that was your favorite food and that's all you ate, it would be fine for maybe half a day, but certainly by the second day you'd kind of ball up and at least wish you were dead. Right? You wouldn't last for very long, and that's what happens to the bacteria. Not only do they not metabolize it, but they don't make that sticky substance that helps it stick onto, in this case, the teeth. And same thing happens in the sinuses. They can't stick. They can't survive in an environment where xylitol is present, even though they would prefer to eat xylitol. They just can't survive. So you can see on this left side picture, the biofilm is very highly accumulated on these teeth. You can see that there's the red on there that indicates a biofilm that's rather young, 24 hours or less. And then it goes into the deeper purple and blue color, and that tells us that the biofilm is over 24 hours. So this was a study that I designed, an out and about study. And thank you to Clear for providing us with their month-long kit to use of a variety of different xylitol products. And the patients were all asked to use xylitol products 5 times a day. And you can see what after 1 month of using the xylitol happened here in this case. There's still some disclosing solution on the lower front teeth there, but it's drastically less. It's hard to see a biofilm in the sinuses, but when you see it on the teeth like this, it really gives you an appreciation for what the xylitol can do. Xylitol was studied for respiratory problems for a long time. This study here was for cystic fibrosis patients, and it was done in 2007. And it enhanced innate immunity, and they were very successfully kind of getting through the mucus that was in the lungs of these cystic fibrosis patients. And it was tolerated very well in a single dose inhalation. Later studies, this one in dogs, looked at nebulizing xylitol for 2 weeks in beagle dogs and found it also very well tolerated. This is one of the initial studies of xylitol in sinuses and found that it was helpful in reducing bacteria in the sinuses. The rabbits could breathe much easier, and they were much healthier. Xylitol also has this added benefit of being hygroscopic, that is that it attracts moisture to itself. It's pretty cool the way that that happens and the reason why it's so beneficial. Especially, you know, we've had sub-zero temperatures around here. You couldn't get moisture in the air from anywhere, and by using xylitol, it will attract whatever moisture there is around to the tissues, so yay. In the lungs, you need to have moisture in order for that gas exchange to take place. So xylitol reduces mucus buildup, it starves the bacteria, and it makes it so the bacteria can't stick, and the virus can't stick either. It improves nasal breathing, and once that mucus is gone, no studies looking at this yet, no one's asked the right question, but it's assumed that if there's less coating on the tissues, the nitric oxide exchange would be better. So by nose breathing, we can have a healthier person. We can also have a healthier academic performance in children in school. If they're breathing through their nose, they're going to be much better off. They're going to sleep better. They're not going to have problems in school because they're trying to stay awake. They're not going to get as many labels as we have, and it's really kind of crazy what's been going on right now. Mouth breathing leads to dry mouth, which leads to dental decay, and it can also lead to developmental issues with the teeth, palate, and dental arches. This is the arrangement, the variety of problems that can occur dentally from mouth breathing from a young age. Obviously, if you started mouth breathing tomorrow and you're already 40, it's not going to happen. But certainly as you are growing as a child, this can contribute. Mouth breathing can contribute to any one of these dental conditions. Xylitol is in the Clear brand of nasal spray, and you can pick that up over there at booth 134. You can pick up a sample. We'll show you how to use it. They are the only company with a xylitol nasal spray. They also have a variety of xylitol products, xylitol nasal products and dental products with the spray line. They even put capsicum powder, or I don't know what kind of, if it was powder or not, but they put it into a nasal spray, and it'll really penetrate everything that goes on in your sinuses. In summary, xylitol's story is continuously growing. It's safe and effective. Starting now is safe. Using it today is safe. Using it now before you go out of your changing room at the gym. You can get your sinuses prepared for nasal breathing. Clearing the sinuses is key to good health, not just good oral health. The recommended dosage is to spray 2 sprays in each nostril in the morning and before you go to bed at night. For children, at each diaper change. We need to get these children, these babies, to breathe through their nose from the first minute. The entire brain is nearly 80% completed by their 3rd birthday, their 3rd year of life. If it's oxygen deprived until then, you can just imagine what happens. So it's critical that we get that airway to work as soon as possible. Primal Air started because I recognized a problem that was costing thousands and thousands of dollars per family, almost per year. ADHD costs a family $15,000 to $25,000 a year. If you don't know that this is an airway problem, there are so many kids who are overly medicated because nobody's taking a look at their airway. Airway, breathing, all of that is the first domino, one of the first dominoes to fall. And we now know better. We can address these things sooner. At Primal Air, we work with the muscles in this snoring complex to help your performance. And we do it so that you can breathe actively. It's not about stress management. It's not about relaxation. It's not about cleansing breaths. It's not about none of this staying still stuff. It's all about being active, whether you're mountain climbing, skipping rope in the backyard, or just cleaning the house. It's really important to get this airway thing under control. And as we close here, I'm going to ask you to do one more little test. If you manage to stay standing, that's great. Otherwise, if you wouldn't mind standing one more time. And just start walking in place. With your mouth closed, just walk in place. How long can you do that for? How long does it take before you take a little sip of air through your mouth? It's almost imperceptible if no one is pointing it out to you. We use therapies that improve the airway, breathing, and overall health. We're located today at booth 134, and I'd be happy to meet you back over there for the rest of the day, or if you want to just call the office and we'll take a look and see what we can do for you to improve your airway at Primal Air.